At exactly 1700 hours, the order came down from the White House. US F-35s lifted off, cut through Venezuelan airspace, and zeroed in on a single target, Nicolás Maduro's hidden bunker. Seconds later, a wall of fire rose above the capital. Entire neighborhoods shook as the underground compound was obliterated in a thunderous blast. To anyone watching from rooftops and balconies, it looked like a sudden act of war, but this was something different. This was a direct strike ordered by President Donald Trump, targeting Nicolás Maduro's most heavily guarded command post. Pentagon officials say the strike was designed to decapitate a narco state that, for years, has been flooding the United States with narcotics and cartel violence. The flames still rising over Caracas weren't just about Maduro. They were about dismantling what US intelligence calls a narco-terror empire. With his bunker destroyed in seconds, Maduro's future may be collapsing with it. In this video, we're going inside the strike, the intelligence that led to it, and the global fallout that could drag the Western Hemisphere into the next great confrontation.
Get it out!
1700 hours, a daring amphibious raid was launched from the border of Colombia deep into the heart of Caracas. Our men are continuing to fight right now.
They're reporting everything's okay right now.
Good. It's not going to be okay. They don't know what's about to hit them.
Trump has been very clear and consistent. He's prepared to use every element of American power to stop drugs from flooding into our country and to bring those responsible to justice. The Maduro regime is not the legitimate government of Venezuela. It is a narco-terror cartel.
The attack began with chaos over Caracas. Sirens wailed, tracer fire lit up the skies, and Venezuelan anti-aircraft crews scrambled to respond. But against US F-35s, they never stood a chance. The assault was relentless, and within seconds, precision missiles locked onto their target. The ground shook violently as the first bunker buster slammed into Maduro's underground fortress. What had been considered the most secure bunker in Venezuela was now reduced to rubble in under 60 seconds.
That'll teach me to shoot at my soldiers.
Hey, let's get another target worked up.
US forces moved seamlessly from one strike package to the next. Venezuelan military convoys attempted to flee the city, but drone footage shows vehicles burning on highways leading out of Caracas. The strike wasn't just destruction, it was symbolic annihilation. That bunker was more than just Maduro's command center. It was where billions in cartel money were counted, where encrypted deals with foreign powers were made, and where Cuba's intelligence officers advised him on how to survive. And just like that, all of it was gone. Yet, the chaos on the streets was only the beginning. Because while one bunker was destroyed, US officials warned that Maduro still had networks of tunnels and safe houses. And now, cornered and humiliated, the regime's response could be even more dangerous.
Good bombs.
False bravado involved. They see us, they've been watching us for a while, they're moving in position, they don't think we can harm them. They just haven't fought us yet.
For years, US intelligence had tracked the existence of Maduro's underground fortress. From the outside, it was nothing more than a government complex on the edge of Caracas. But deep below, buried beneath layers of reinforced concrete, was the regime's most closely guarded secret. Inside, this bunker was a nerve hub of a narco state. Pentagon sources say encrypted communications flowed directly from here to cartel bosses in Mexico, intelligence handlers in Havana, and financial backers in Beijing.
We're talking about a narco state. A government that produced over 25% of the entire cocaine that is produced in the entire world.
Satellite imagery and defectors had long hinted at the bunker's contents. Rooms lined with stacks of US dollars, vaults filled with gold reserves, and yet, to the people of Venezuela, the bunker symbolized something darker. While millions went hungry, Maduro's loyalists drank imported whiskey and plotted deals in safety. While the power grid collapsed above ground, his command post hummed with backup generators, reserved only for the elite.
Que llegaron golpeando las puertas, retañando las ventanas, agarrando gente.
The result? This. Thousands of Venezuelans are crossing this river into Colombia.
They're from Venezuela, and they're on a long trek towards cities in Colombia and elsewhere in South America, where they hope to find work.
It's getting really tough, and so many people are leaving Venezuela.
That's why the strike hit so hard. It wasn't just walls and steel that collapsed. It was the illusion that Nicolás Maduro was untouchable. But the destruction raised urgent questions. Had Maduro himself been inside? Had foreign operatives escaped before the missiles hit? And if he survived, where would he strike back from next? Because even as US commanders celebrated the obliteration of his stronghold, Pentagon officials warned, a cornered narco regime can be the most dangerous of all. The strike on Caracas wasn't a random operation. It came directly from the Oval Office. According to senior officials, President Trump signed a classified directive weeks earlier, authorizing the Pentagon to use every element of American power against Nicolás Maduro and the cartels propping up his regime.
Okay, we'll sign right here, right? Sure.
President Trump signed a secret directive last month instructing the Pentagon to use military force against some Latin American drug cartels. His administration has labeled some of these as terrorist organizations.
That message wasn't just for Venezuelans, it was for the world.
In Maduro, it is the view of this administration, is not a legitimate president. He is a fugitive head of this cartel who has been indicted in the United States for trafficking drugs into the country.
The Pentagon had already moved destroyers, Marines, and surveillance aircraft into the Caribbean. Intelligence reports showed 3 US-guided missile destroyers, the USS Jason Dunham, the USS Gravely, and the USS Fort Lauderdale, all within striking distance. Equipped with over 100 missiles each, they carried enough firepower to overwhelm entire armies.
These destroyers are equipped with more than 100 missiles, including surface-to-air missiles. They can conduct anti-aircraft and anti-submarine warfare and even shoot down ballistic missiles. Deploying these destroyers against these drug cartels would be like bringing a howitzer gun into a knife fight.
But this wasn't just about firepower, it was about signaling.
But the scale of the forces that the Pentagon is now moving into place, coupled with Trump's order, suggests that the administration is contemplating going significantly beyond law enforcement.
Trump's order followed years of frustration as cartels linked to Venezuela funneled fentanyl and cocaine across US borders. And when intelligence tied Maduro's inner circle to those very pipelines, the White House escalated the fight from a drug war to a war of regime change.
Is someone who has recognized that Maduro is not just a threat to South America, it's not just a threat to Venezuelans, but it's also a threat to the American people.
That was Franklin Camargo, a Venezuelan activist in exile, calling the strike a long-awaited turning point.
So there is a need for the American people, for the well-being of the American people in the Western Hemisphere to have a regime change, to stop these cartels.
Yeah. Inside Venezuela, reactions split. In neighborhoods loyal to Maduro, militia units scrambled to arm themselves after his call to deploy more than 4.5 million militiamen, his own elite army. But in opposition strongholds, the atmosphere was different.
Yeah, I spoke to one of the opposition activist who was holed up in that embassy for over a year before she was rescued. And I asked her, and she said, it's a silent euphoria.
Ordinary Venezuelans dared not cheer openly, but privately, they whispered that Trump had done what they'd long prayed for, cracked open the walls of a criminal state.
Venezuelans recognize that Trump is an ally, that the US government is probably the biggest hope that we currently have.
And yet, the strike also carried an unmistakable danger, because with one order, the United States hadn't just targeted a bunker, it had lit a fuse that could draw in Russia, China, and Cuba, all of whom had men and money tied directly to Maduro's survival.
Yeah, definitely China is all involved in Venezuela. I saw a Chinese flag, I saw a Cuban flag, and an Iranian flag. That doesn't really make sense. So all of these countries are openly operating in Venezuela to harm American interest in the region.
The question now, would they stay on the sidelines or strike back? In Moscow, the Russian Foreign Ministry condemned the strike as an act of imperial aggression. Reports quickly surfaced that Russian warships in the Atlantic were moving closer to Venezuelan waters. In Havana, Cuban state media vowed solidarity with their brother revolution, calling on militias to resist the invasion. And in Beijing, Chinese officials warned that US actions had crossed a red line in the Western Hemisphere. Inside Venezuela, Maduro's loyalists tried to project strength. The dictator himself appeared on state television, vowing to defend his lands from any invasion.
In response, Maduro announced last week that he was deploying more than 4.5 million militiamen around his country. He vowed to defend our seas, our skies, and our lands from any incursion.
Hours later, his defense ministry ordered mass mobilization of reservists, urging civilians to arm themselves and take to the streets. But the reality was chaos. Entire neighborhoods in Caracas had lost power. Convoys of armored vehicles were spotted retreating from the capital, and intelligence rumored that Cuban and Iranian advisors had gone underground, fearing further strikes. Meanwhile, the cartels, Maduro's silent partners, have been moving in the shadows, mobilizing men and getting ready to defend their territory. The U.S. military, however, was already bracing for escalation. Up to 4,500 Marines aboard the USS Iwo Jima and USS San Antonio Amphibious groups were ordered into high alert. Surveillance drones circled Venezuela's coastline, tracking militia deployments. A Pentagon official compared the atmosphere to the brink of past wars.
That war went on for over a decade, and eventually America had to retreat. It had to withdraw unsuccessfully after the fall of Saigon. In the second incident, which was in December of 1989, then President George H.W. Bush sent more than 20,000 American troops to invade Panama and arrested strongman leader Manuel Noriega.
And yet, for millions of Venezuelans, the strike brought something they hadn't felt in years: hope. Still, beneath the hope lay fear, because this wasn't just about Maduro's bunker. This was about whether America had just pulled the trigger on a chain reaction that could ignite across the entire hemisphere. Would this be remembered as the strike that freed Venezuela, or the spark that dragged the world into a new war? For Venezuela, the strike on Caracas is not the first time U.S. power has closed in on Nicolás Maduro. In fact, during Trump's first term, the world watched a shadow war unfold. Back then, Venezuela was already collapsing. Once one of South America's wealthiest oil states, by 2019, it had been gutted by hyperinflation.
4 years of hyperinflation has made its currency practically worthless.
Millions were starving, families fled across borders in search of food, and at the center of the storm stood Maduro, clinging to power as his rival, Juan Guaidó, claimed legitimacy with the backing of over 50 nations, including the United States.
What's interesting is over 50 nations around the world recognize Guaidó as the legitimate leader, including the US.
Then came the plot. In May 2020, a group of mercenaries launched a desperate raid from Colombia. Their mission: storm Caracas, capture Maduro, and spark a revolution. It failed almost instantly.
Now, a recent failed attempt by a band of mercenaries to overthrow Maduro has drawn international attention once again to the troubled South American country. But the question is, was this coup supported by the US government? An ex-US military serviceman, Jordan Goudreau, has claimed responsibility for the botched attempt to defeat the Venezuelan leader.
Venezuelan security forces intercepted the boats, ended the lives of several attackers, and paraded captured Americans on state television. One of them, a former U.S. Green Beret named Luke Denman, confessed under interrogation.
Who commands Jordan? President Donald Trump.
The regime broadcast the footage worldwide, claiming Washington had ordered the coup. Maduro called the men professional American mercenaries.
Venezuela has now arrested 13 alleged mercenaries, at least 2 of which are US citizens, and the leader Maduro is calling them professional American mercenaries.
The White House denied it.
Whatever it is, we'll let you know, but it has nothing to do with our government.
Behind the scenes, investigators identified the mission's architect as Jordan Goudreau, an ex-US Special Forces soldier turned security contractor. Maduro demanded his extradition. Washington refused and threatened retaliation.
The Maduro regime decides to hold them. We'll use every tool that we have available to try and get them back. It's our responsibility to do so.
For Venezuelans, the failed raid became a twisted memory, a glimpse of liberation crushed in days, turned into propaganda by Maduro to portray himself as the man who beat America. But the scars of that botched coup never healed, and when Trump returned to power, his advisors made one point clear: if Washington moved on Maduro again, there would be no denials, no mercenary cover stories, and no half measures. This time, the strike would come directly from the United States military, and this time, Maduro's bunker wouldn't survive. But the bigger question remains: what comes next? Inside Venezuela, power outages and panic grip the streets. Some analysts warn this moment could mark the first shots of a wider conflict in the Western Hemisphere, one that drags superpowers into open confrontation. For Venezuelans, it's a moment of both terror and fragile hope. Let us know what you think in the comments below. Was this the right move, or has the United States just lit a fuse it can't put out? And don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more in-depth reports on the world's most dangerous conflicts. Click one of the cards on your screen right now to watch our other videos on US-Venezuela tensions and the cartel networks behind them.